Hi, everybody. Welcome back to my channel. Shout out to everybody in the chat. Guys, I am so sorry. It took me a minute to get started. Uh, Pushing back the time a little bit. Shout out to everybody, you guys. Thank you guys for being here. Welcome, welcome. Hit that like button, please, and thank you. Let me do a little intro so notifications can go out. Now, while I'm doing that, hit the like, get your drink, and we're going to get started, okay? And for those that are watching the replay, please note that I do put timestamps on my videos after the live is over so you can go directly and skip over whatever part you want to and get to where you want to go. All right, let's go. Alrighty. Let me make sure that my headphones are connected. I think they're connected now. Let's check the sound right quick, yo. Huh. Oh, let's go headphones, AirPods. Come on. One sec, y'all. Oh, this is so frustrating. Okay. Welcome back. Hopefully we can figure this AirPod situation out. Here we go. Let's try that one. See if it works. Okay. Sounds like this might work. Okay, good. Welcome, everybody, guys. Thank you so much. Aren't you excited to see what the Matrix presents today? Lord have mercy. Sometimes I feel like we live in a matrix. Let me just say that much. Welcome. I saw Bossy earlier. Wim, Nebby, DB, Snow, Leslie, where you been? Monica's in the house. Lisa, shout out to you. Chico, David, Heidi, Cheeks, Violet. Is it Goofy Newfie Mom? Shout out to you, Goofy Newfie Mom. That's a cute name. Rhonda, how you doing? Oh my goodness. Suzanne, welcome. Or Susan, welcome. Shark Chick, welcome. Let's see. Maria, welcome. Is it giving? I went a little bit more platinum and I took a little bit of the purple out, but I'm still planning to do a little bit more purple. Like I'm obsessed with the purple and I want to go darker on the purple. But I got a little bit more, like I said, I was going to go platinum at some point and I decided to do that. So I was able to do that. Took a little break yesterday. I mean, I did a little video. So you see me one more video that I upload with some purple. But I wanted to highlight some more gray and I got a little tint of violet and pink still. But I really, really want to do more purple because I love it. This interview, which interview, yo? Which interview? Well, thank you, thank you. Spooky, welcome, welcome. Hopefully the notifications are going out. April, Dee Dee, happy Thursday. Is it really Thursday? Feels like it's Monday. Thank you, Dee Dee. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Nikki, how you doing? Thank you. Um, See, that was my thing. It said if I start getting gray hairs, it's time for me to do something and really go crazy with whatever. Purple is royalty. Blend with blue and red. Really? I was thinking about doing all blue yesterday, actually. I'm not gonna lie. Y'all would have seen a lot of blue. But I'm not ready for the blue because you know how blue later fades into like turquoise and everything. I wasn't ready for that quite yet. So yeah. But you know what? I know, love playing with your hairs. A really nice purple orchid. I know, I love it. I love it. I love it. All right. Well, welcome guys. Welcome. Hey Tracy, welcome. We got some stuff to get into. Please go vote on the poll. The poll, go vote. Don't be a poll troll. Welcome. Where are we gonna start with? Ooh, look at this. Baby Reindeer is leading the way. But let me see which one's the lowest because I honestly think that this Gypsy Rose situation we could just talk about in like less than 3 minutes and be done dadas with it because I really am over this. Like I don't like Gypsy Rose, but the fact that she's suing bloggers, which I think is stupid, and also a situation in which she kind of walked herself into, in my opinion. Whether there was a contract, I don't know. We can just get started there and just choo check mark. Let's be done with this shit. Let's be done with the Gypsy Rose situation. Well, it's Dickie's birthday. Happy birthday, Dickie. Aw, y'all put some little cat emojis in the chat. What are you guys drinking on? Let me know. Iced coffee, you already know. She gonna lose, but I digress. Well, we'll talk about let's just start with the Gypsy Rose thing. It's the lowest voting on the poll, and we'll get there. And then we'll jump into Baby Reindeer and then maybe finish up with Ray J. Okay, so Gypsy Rose. Let's start with Gypsy Rose. I did watch a little bit Fancy Macelli's live where she gave an update about what happened at the court hearing. Based on her description about what happened, because I guess they had to hurry up and go down there and see a judge and whatnot, because if they didn't see a judge, it would have been bad, right? What sounds like they dismissed it, and I believe it was based on jurisdiction. That doesn't mean it doesn't get to be refiled. Like if they can go refile it somewhere else, this lawsuit, right? So for those that don't know what's going on, let me give you a little backstory. Gypsy Rose Blanchard is the young woman that played a part in the murder of her mother. Okay, she served some time in jail, in prison, I believe 8 years, and she still has like 2 years to serve, like parole or whatever. She has caused quite the social media stir because, well, number one, her story of the things that she went through with her mother, people have found some things that are very disputable. She says one thing on some interviews, and then something else in a different interview. So it was said that there was a blogger here on YouTube that had reached out to the Blanchard family a couple years ago. And they promoted themselves to be like a producer. They presented a contract. They were going to sign this, they signed this contract. And so this blogger by the name of Fancy was given exclusive information. And that's, they signed it, whatever that happened. And so then things didn't go very well. Fancy then came onto YouTube and considered herself the expert, the leading expert on the Gypsy Rose Blanchard case. Clearly that wasn't something that the Blanchard family liked, so they decided to, now she's been released under such conditions, they're going to go sue her and correct the record to a certain degree. They're alleging that they have been defamed, and my dog is snoring. I could hear the dog snoring. Hey, loud. Sorry, that distracted me. Correct the record and sue Fancy Macelli. And so then I guess they went to court yesterday, and the court said, that this case was going to be dismissed because it wasn't filed within the accurate or correct jurisdiction. That's what happened. Doesn't mean it's not going to get refiled. It means what it means. That's what it means. So you said, I wonder what a parole officer thinks of all this. Right, David? Like, I wonder what the parole officer is thinking too. I don't know. I am so and so then yesterday there was an interview because Gypsy Rose is dropping her reality TV show and whatnot. Like, I am trying to figure this out with these reality TV shows because it seems like, in my opinion, TLC is a bit desperate too. You also have the Baldwins. What the fuck is his name? The one that what's his name? Damn, I forgot. But the Baldwins are also having a reality TV show. I mean, the guy just got in trouble or is going to be facing court soon with this whole shooting because of the movie and whatnot. So this is interesting. Alec, thank you. I was see, there's so many Baldwins. Just the Alec one isn't the good looking one. There was a very good looking Baldwin, and I don't know what happened to him. I don't know if it's Daniel or the other Baldwin. There's a couple of Baldwins. Alec, yes. Cheeks, you're right. I don't like the Gypsy Rose narrative, but I see how Fancy changed the narrative. There has been, so maybe Fancy is sitting on some info that, people feel like it's going to expose or has exposed Gypsy. This whole thing about a chromosome disorder, that it turns out that Dee Dee was justified in taking Gypsy Rose to various medical appointments. I'm over this shit. The girl served time. And if it maybe, I don't know, like, do I agree that the justice system was fair in that situation? No, because you still have Nicholas Godejohn that's in prison, and I feel like it needs to be revisited as far as that case goes. I don't like how things have worked out. I'm over Gypsy Rose. I think she's cultivated a following that is very just off the wall weird and toxic to a certain degree. But if y'all are fans of her, listen. Do you, boo? I don't like Gypsy Rose. That's all. William Baldwin as the good-looking brother. Yes, y'all. One of the Baldwins is good-looking, but it's not Alec. You said William. We're gonna have to do a little poll on that. You said put a rabbit on the head and they could be full of hair. Okay, listen. So. What is y'all? Listen, anybody can have a reality TV show at this point. Gypsy Rose. Who else? A bunch of people. And now I'm hearing that the folks are like she's potentially pregnant at this point. Is this what we're hearing now? I cannot. You said Stephen Baldwin used to be a OF model in the 80s? Really? He's now 61. Is he still good look? One of the Baldwins is good looking. That's all I'm gonna say. Stephen Baldwin. Let me see. Now you guys are gonna make me look at a picture from the 80s model. One of them was good looking. One of them. I don't think all of them were good looking. Oh yeah, I see it. Yeah, he was like a model, but like I think Alec was the only one that was really a good actor. The other ones weren't very good at acting. Like Alec Baldwin had the acting thing. I'd give him that. But as far as like the good looking part, one of the Baldwins. You don't think Oh my god. Oh wow. There's a Natalie raid coming. Oh, thank you, Natalie. You're awesome. Thank you. Shout out to Natalie. Corn Freak, thank you for being here in Cricket Cinema. Billy is handsome. All right, for those that are just coming in, we got a couple of topics we got to go through. We were just talking about which Baldwin was good looking. And apparently, I personally don't think that Alec Baldwin was good looking, but some of y'all are saying it's either Steven or William. There's several Baldwins out there. We don't know which one's good looking. You said his acting is mediocre? Oh, Lord. Well, welcome, everybody, guys. Thank you so much. Shout out to Natalie. Thank you. I need to figure out how to do raids, like redirect traffic, because I don't know how to do that. That's out of my playing field. Thank you. Oh, Natalie. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. You're awesome. I love this damn community. I love the community. All right. Y'all ready to move on? Are we done talking about Baldwin? So that's the deal about Gypsy Rose and the Gypsy Rose news. Okay. Gypsy Rose, the lawsuit was dismissed. It's probably going to get refiled in a different jurisdiction. They're going to move on with that. Doesn't mean that we're done with it. Thank you, guys. You said no Baldwins. Y'all said no Baldwins? We're talking about the Baldwins. Which one's good looking? And then we went into Gypsy Rose before we get into Baby Reindeer. And I'm going to give you guys a backstory on Baby Reindeer because some of you guys don't even know what the hell that is. Okay. Oh, all right. So all the Natalie folks are coming through. Thank you. Shout out to Natalie. Shout out to Natalie. And please note, I will be putting timestamps if you're watching the replay on this. Thank you, guys. You said none of the Baldwins are good looking. We were talking about the Baldwins, y'all. The Baldwins. Thank you. Shout out to Natalie. All right, y'all. Let's get it going. Hey, Neuropsych, everybody, let's get it going. So, Baby Reindeer. For those that don't know, we keep talking about who the fuck is Baby Reindeer? What is a baby reindeer? What is going on? Baby Reindeer is a series on Netflix that was released a couple months ago. I want to say maybe 2 months ago. Okay. And in this series, all right. Yeah, the Baldwins are involved in Scientology. Keep that in mind. That's true. I forgot about that. Baby Reindeer tells a story, supposed true life story of a man that went through some stalking of a woman, right? And he tells the story. It's very traumatic. Now, I said a true life, real life, potentially not. We really don't know because Netflix reported that it was based on real life true events. And Richard Gatt, who is also the writer and creator of this, started in this thing. He's actually the said victim of this whole Baby Reindeer situation, right? And so a couple weeks ago, Piers Morgan did an interview with the woman that they basically labeled a stalker out of this series. Yes, yes, yes. Oh Lord, y'all are coming right in. Well, I'm going to explain a little bit more. Shout out to everybody. It is very traumatic. So that is a series on Netflix. I think it's like a total of 7 episodes, 30 minutes per episode. And let me give you guys the biggest trigger warning. If you're watching Baby Reindeer, it is very much like triggering, especially episode 4 and 5, and like just be careful if you're watching it. But it basically tells the story of this man's trauma, and there's a woman by the name of Martha who allegedly is stalking him, and it is horrible. Well, here's what happened. Baby Reindeer was released. Internet sleuths, now it wasn't me, there's other other internet sleuths, they found out who the real Martha is by doing a search of her tweets. So the series on Netflix featured a couple of her tweets, like stalking type of tweets, because the man Richard said that this woman was stalking him, right? And there were tweets, and I mean, they were showing all kinds of things on this series. So the internet decided to find out, is this a real story? Did this really happen? And they were able to identify the real Martha. Her name is Fiona Harvey. And they found her through various tweets that she had done in like 2016, 2017. They found out so much information about her that the real Fiona Harvey decided to come forward and do an interview on Piers Morgan. Okay. Ooh, I saw some of it. I did. So one of the things, and I did a breakdown on Baby Reindeer. One of the things that was shown was that Fiona Harvey had other victims that she, had allegedly stalked before. And we have to be very careful because Fiona Harvey's suing Netflix at this point. This is going to be a huge thing. Netflix didn't do a good job in protecting the real Fiona, the real Martha. And so now Martha's like, fuck this. I'm going to come out and I'm going to, go haywire. And she has. On Facebook, she has gone cray, like all over the place. She did her interview. She's gone after Piers at this point. She has gone after folks. So you do have to be careful when you're talking about, Fiona Harvey. Fiona Harvey has a victim. This is before the actual the baby reindeer guy. This was before baby reindeer. There's a woman by the name of Laura Wray who encountered the real Fiona. And she was stalked by the real Fiona. So she did this interview on Piers Morgan just recently. We're going to watch it right now. And we're going to give commentary to it. This right here is like, oh my God. First of all, how scary it is that she is showing her face. Okay. But she's coming forward and she's letting everybody know that Netflix didn't get everything correct. That there's some parts that Netflix might have gotten incorrect or lied about and stuff like that. Listen, Baby Reindeer 2024. I feel like a lot of people are suffering from this kinds of behaviors and people really need to get themselves checked out. Okay? I mean, we're seeing this Baby Reindeer in the SPTV community. We're seeing it in various other communities. You guys, people, y'all need to get there's a difference between like stalking maybe an ex-boyfriend or an ex-friend's social media. Like there's a difference to checking up on somebody to see how they're doing. But like the extent to what this woman went with this woman and Richard Gatt is very scary. All right? Very scary. Let's get it together.
I'm extremely concerned that this woman might also be moving close to where I live.
The time.
Do you feel threatened by that?
I always felt threatened. I just never knew what she was capable of. She was rude to staff.
1 sec.
She shouted at people. She was inappropriate with a male. She threw a book.
As character in Baby Reindeer goes looking for evidence about his stalker Martha, he quickly finds news reports with chilling echoes of his own experiences.
I sat there for hours taking it all in, piecing together her whole timeline. Her graduate job, how she got fired for inappropriate behavior with the boss, how she started hanging around outside his house, then falsely reporting him to the police for abusing his disabled child. This other time she attacked his mother in the street, a 4.5-year prison sentence.
That is a portion of that Baby Reindeer movie, okay? The series that was supposedly based on real life events, but some stuff is not real life events. And so then this is what led to the real Martha, which is Fiona Harvey, to come out and correct the record, so to speak. Let's keep watching.
As with Fiona Harvey herself, it didn't take long for the real identity of the person at the heart of that story to become widespread public knowledge. Her name is Laura Wray, and as the apparently fictional headline suggests, she is a lawyer who claims that Fiona Harvey stalked and harassed her and her family many years before she ever met Gad.
Wow.
I put those claims to Fiona Harvey during our interview. The Sun reported an interview with Laura Wray, who you've referenced, who accused you of inappropriate behaviour whilst you worked with her.
She headhunted me from another firm because she needed someone to do employment law, and I'm pretty good at employment law. So
she said that she had to sack you days later because you were completely incapable of behaving yourself.
I walked. Her staff were really, really rude to me.
She then said that following you leaving, obviously very quickly, that you then harassed her. Mrs. Wray said she was so frightened she issued workers at her firm with personal alarms. You were then served an interim interdict to stop you from contacting the lawyer or her politician husband.
Yeah, that's nonsense.
An interim
interdict. Check this out. There is no interim interdict in Scotland.
Why? Well, after the interview...
Can I just say, if you watch the Fiona Harvey interview with Piers, like one of the things that was really annoying about that interview she would just do this like, yeah, like Piers is talking and she's like, yeah, no, maybe, I was like, lady, stop. Like that was just, I don't know why that irritated the crap out of me, but it did. Never in Catherine, thank you for becoming a member. Shout out to you guys. Oh my God. And shout out to Natalie. Thank you, Natalie, for the raid. You are awesome and amazing. Welcome, 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 everybody. Yes, now I'm doing it, neuropsych. Now I'm doing it. Okay. All right, let me stop.
Which is now being seen by nearly 14 million people on the Uncensored YouTube channel alone. Laura Wray contacted me and said she'd like her opportunity to respond. And she joins me now in the studio. Laura, thank you very much for coming down from Scotland for this.
Jeez.
I can only imagine that this is something that you hoped had disappeared from your life a long time ago. But because of the Netflix series and how incredibly successful it's been, one of the most watched series in living memory, it's brought it all back to your door and your family and what you say you went through at the hands of Fiona Harvey. So first of all, when did you know Netflix were doing a series?
Well, I found out about 5 weeks ago. The Mail on Sunday contacted me and asked me, had I seen Baby Reindeer? And I had no idea what they were talking about. So they suggested I go and watch an episode of it, which I did. And then I spoke to them and I couldn't believe it. From the very beginning, it was obvious it was the same woman. It was Fiona Harvey. You know, the actress who does a very good job, sounds like her, looks like her, mimicked her to a T.
And uses the same phrases which they found on the real Fiona Harvey's Twitter account.
Yes, I mean, I have a file full of papers, which are letters from her, emails, faxes, and so forth. And it's all identical.
And you yourself were identified very quickly from the series because there could only have been one Scottish lawyer who'd been through this experience with Fiona Harvey because it was all documented.
Well, I think it's because it was so unusual that she was a female stalker stalking another female. And so I was actually identified by the press before she was. I think the press sort of held back a bit with her for about a week. And then I think it was the Sun who came out and said who she was.
This was the Sunday Mail, one of the top Scottish papers at the time. MP wife of a stalker, your husband Jimmy was an MP at the time.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it was a front page splash story. So this wasn't a quiet, small thing. This was a massive news story in Scotland that people would have been aware of.
And Fiona, by the way, at some point, she has two last names, right? So she went by one last name. She wouldn't go by Harvey. She would go by Fiona Muir. So when people would look up Fiona, initially, when people would look up Fiona Harvey, you wouldn't find information about Fiona. You'd have to find go by Muir, and you'd find all of these stalking allegations, all of this pattern of behavior that was tracked by the internet, that was tracked by the media at that time. So this was kind of like a thing that built up, over time. Right. She said in that interview that she had about 6 phones. Now, let me just say this. I used to have, when I worked in government, I used to have about 2 phones. 2 phones. Yes. 2 phones in addition to other devices. So to me, that's pretty, if you're in the field, you're in the business, people, you got different people calling you, different things going on. That's pretty normal to have more than one phone, more than one phone number. I don't know about you guys, but when Fiona said she had 6 emails, I don't necessarily think that that's abnormal. Nowadays, you sign up to something, you're going to have emails that follow with that. Your Gmail account, I have a Proton account, I have a Hotmail. These are things that are pretty normal. So it's normal, but I wouldn't say that I use all of my email addresses, if that makes sense. Some of them are just there because that comes with a certain package or whatever it may be. So kind of keep that in mind of what that looks like. You think 2 is normal? I mean, like I said, 6 phones is wild. Now listen, I don't know about that. Bella, 6 phones is wild. All right. Who's calling you? Why 6 phones? That's crazy. But she said something about one would break, one would, things like that. So keep that in mind.
It was indeed, yes.
So when you realized that your story was being recounted, albeit with the names changed, in Baby Reindeer, how did it make you feel?
Well, I I just couldn't believe it. I just couldn't believe what was going on. And I was in a state of shock for about a week.
Really?
Yeah.
Had a really bad effect on you.
It had a very bad effect on me. And even now, after 5 weeks or so, when I'm getting over it a bit, it's still very triggering every time I see something. I mean, I've never watched YouTube before, apart from when I saw your program a few weeks ago.
Wow.
And yet every day there are more comments and people, psychiatrists and so on, going on, talking about the show, analysing your interview. And it just all triggers everything back to me every time I see it. It's very...
I don't understand why did Netflix contact Laura, because even though they didn't have a character that represented Laura, they did talk about her stalking, right? They talked about all these articles that were happening. So did they ever really consider what kind of a risk they would have put her, given that, you know, she was like also a victim of this? One thing I will say about Baby Reindeer that I think is very important to put out there is that it gives, like, a lot of us don't see men as victims, if that makes sense, right? There is this like separation of like men can't be stalked, men can't be assaulted, men can't be victimized, men are the aggressors. They're like, folks wear this hat that it's almost like we don't see that there's always more to something, or this, like, there's probably a story behind a lot of this. So I do kind of wonder, like, they didn't make her a character, but they did talk about her. So did they reach out to Laura? Did Netflix say, listen, we're going to be featuring this story, please note that this could put you back at risk for something? Hey, Bossy. Hey, everybody that's coming in. Shout out to everybody in the chat.
Very, very distressing.
Have you been
It's
emotional
intense.
about it?
I have, yes.
You've been left to tears from it?
Well, yes. I mean, I'm a reasonably robust person. I'm an advocate. I appear in court all the time, so I'm not easily prone to tears. But this has got me very, very anxious and upset. And particularly since a few weeks ago, I thought she was down in London, but a few weeks ago, we were told that in the little village near us called Macelli, which is where she's from originally, she's now been looking to buy a house, we've been told.
Oh my
Now,
God.
I don't know whether that's true, but apparently journalists were going round the doors in Macelli about 2 weeks ago asking about this. So I'm extremely concerned that this woman not only is abusing me on the internet, on her Facebook pages, and on every opportunity she can, defaming me, but she might also be moving close to where I live.
Do you feel threatened by that?
I do feel threatened. I always felt threatened by her because I just never knew what she was capable of.
Let's go back to when you first encountered her.
Yeah.
Obviously, she says that you headhunted her to be a specialist in the employment law at your firm at the time. Is that true?
No, she was looking for a traineeship. She had been looking for a traineeship for about 4 years and couldn't get anyone to take her on, or at least I think she'd been taken on twice before me, but for very brief periods of time. So you're supposed to get a traineeship within 2 years of getting your legal diploma. She must have got several extensions on that because she was way out of time. So I received quite a number of letters from her. And they were in such familiar terms that I thought this must be somebody I've met somewhere, perhaps through the Labour Party. So then when I got engaged to Jimmy, she sent me a congratulations card. So I then got another letter from her saying, oh, I'm disappointed you haven't interviewed me for a traineeship. And I felt rather bad about that if this was somebody that I'd met and perhaps overlooked. So I invited her to come in and see me, to talk to me. And I have to say, she was reasonably credible. I'm not daft, you know, she didn't behave in the way she subsequently behaved, you know, during the interview. But I did have a few concerns about her. She went into a bit of detail with me about her family circumstances, which I won't repeat. But she made me feel very sorry for her. And I said, okay. She said, I've never had anybody giving me a chance. Would you please help me out here? I've got no money, etc. So I said, okay. And she only worked for me for 2 weeks.
Did you believe that she was?
She only worked with her for 2 weeks. And Squirrel, You'll Be a Woman Soon says Netflix seems to have dropped the ball on due diligence on the basis that Baby Reindeer was a very successful invert fringe show before. Yeah, so it was a theater show before it was okay. So Richard Gatt, who is the actual Baby Reindeer, for those that are like, what the hell is a Baby Reindeer? You're gonna have to watch. I think it's like episode 2 or something. Martha, aka Fiona, gave Richard the name Baby Reindeer because of something that, you know, I can't even remember, but it reminded her of a baby reindeer, and so that's what the series is called, Baby Reindeer. That came straight out of Fiona. Before it went to Netflix, it used to be it's not a Broadway show, but like a theater show or something like that. And Richard would be like the main person that would act it out. So keep that in mind. This was already out there. Fiona was aware that this was out there. It's very disturbing, neuropsych. I mean, I would say just be mindful of how disturbing it is. Yeah, thank you. It was a plushie that made her feel safe as a child. But like a baby reindeer toy, right? Something to that effect. Sorry, y'all. It's been a couple weeks since I watched it. And honestly, I wouldn't rewatch it again because it's triggering. It's like the topics of it are very triggering. A stuffed animal. Thank you. It was a toy for Christmas. Look at you guys. And he made a lot of this into his comedic act. So it was like out there before it became a Netflix series. It was his stand-up routine. That's right. That's right. One way to process trauma is through art. No, I would say that maybe that's what he did.
Qualified.
Oh no, I knew she wasn't qualified. She was looking for a traineeship. Trainees do menial jobs like, you know, at the start filing or, you know, sitting in and things. You know, you're training them. They're not doing anything of any great worth for you. So you need to have a 2-year training.
But she said she had a law degree.
Yeah, but that's not enough.
No, it's not full legal training. But do you think that she even had the law degree?
I think she had the law degree because in my file of papers, I do have a copy of something from the Law Society where it does state that she's got a law degree. So I believe she has a law degree. And I believe that some years later, she got the diploma in law, which you require to have in Scotland.
Do you think she ever practiced law?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I don't think she ever got a traineeship in Scotland.
Whoa.
She, I know for sure, worked with another firm after myself and was fired from there. And caused that firm a lot of grief.
You claimed in our interview that you didn't even know the name of your own firm.
Well, that's nonsense. I mean, my firm was called L&L Lawrence at the time I employed her. We subsequently amalgamated with a much larger firm called Drummond Miller, who took over ourselves and another trade union firm called McPhail's. So to keep the connection with the firms and to keep the goodwill.
Thank you, Woohoo. Says, is it Edinburgh Fringe? I don't even know if I'm saying that right. Launches careers in the UK. And you said that there's also one in Canada. Cheek says, imagine stalking someone, then they make a play and a show about you. Like I said, some of the dark times turns into art. And that's what I think happened with Richard Gatt, is that he decided to turn this into art. But, where it's at right now, like I think she's threatening to sue Piers. She feels like she should have been paid 1.5 million for this interview that she did on his show. Now, the problem with that is you would think that somebody who has a law training or degree or something, that she would have been able to know like what kind of a contract she was walking into, what she would have been paid. She could have been able to negotiate this. So I don't think she's very well skilled in that, if that makes sense. Okay, pronounce Edinburgh. Thank you, y'all. I love it. You guys correct me. No worries. No. So the woman that's speaking, she is the victim. She is allegedly Fiona's first victim. Before Richard Gatt, this is Fiona's first victim. Her name is Laura Wray. And so then Laura Wray starts hearing about this Netflix documentary. And guess what? People start contacting her. So she is essentially now being put back on the spotlight because of this Netflix docuseries. But like somebody said in the chat, I can't remember who said it, and you might want to repeat it. You know, Netflix didn't do a good job or due diligence in terms of making sure that folks were actually, protected. It's, these subjects, if that made sense. Edinburgh. Okay, thank you. Aw. Okay, Edinburgh. All right. Listen, I love it. Thank y'all. Thank you for correcting me. Okay.
They called us the McPhail-Lawrence Partnership in Glasgow. And then a few years later, we were all subsumed into Drummond Miller.
Once she started working for you, what happened?
Well, I was out of the office quite a lot because we had an office in Glasgow, an office in Edinburgh. So she was put onto a desk where what she had to do was jot down details of anyone phoning on our accident hotline. Now, this was the days before the internet. So we had a special phone number, a free phone number. Members of the public could phone if they wanted advice about an accident. So all she had to do was to write down the name and address of the people, take some basic details, and then get a solicitor to phone them. She wouldn't have been capable of giving advice because she had no experience.
Right.
She'd never done anything.
So it was a clerk job, really?
Yeah, pretty much. It was a trainee solicitor's not quite a clerk, but I mean, they're a very junior member of your staff.
I meant kind of office clerk sort of level of stuff.
Well, office clerks can often have a lot more experience in certain things. She was very much trainee solicitor role. So, she was there to learn from us rather than the other way around.
And how did she do?
She was dreadful. I mean, I wasn't there all the time. But
she said, Woohoo says her job was nothing. So sad. That's what it sounds like. It sounds like it was a very, pretty easy, mundane type of job, right? Like it wasn't anything too crazy. She wasn't out there fighting crime or, taking down big people. I mean, it sounds like it required her to be able to take some details, which it sounds like she's not able to do, or at least she wasn't able to perform this job.
But essentially, she was rude to staff. She shouted at people. She was inappropriate with a male member of staff. She tried to follow a male member of staff home. I mean, all sorts of things happened. She threw a book across the office and hit somebody with it. But on the hotline, she was heard to be saying to people, oh, you don't want to come here. I'll give you the name of another firm of solicitors. So we were paying all this money for this premium rated hotline, and she was giving the details of our competitors to individuals.
And did you try and have it out with her?
Well, I did. I mean, the first thing that had happened was on day one, she came into my cashier demanding that the cashier give her a sub. And our cashier, Caroline, said to her, I'm sorry, but we don't do that. You'll need to wait to the end of the month. A couple of days later, she came into my office, burst through the door, very upset and kind of angry. And I said, what is it? And she said, well, there's a man downstairs who won't leave. I owe him money. And I thought, goodness, somebody sitting in my reception, anybody else who's waiting there will think I owe this man money. So I said to her, well, what's this all about? And she said, well, I owe him for a car repair. And she said, so I need a sub. And I said, well, I'm disappointed you keep asking for subs because we've told you we're not going to do that.
Wow.
I said, how much is it? She said, £250. And she said she borrowed the money from her auntie, but when she went into the envelope, it wasn't enough money in it. And she said she had no money to live till the end of the month. So I said to her, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll give you £250 out of my own personal money. Go and pay the man and then come up and talk to me. So she came up and talked to me. I said, keep the other £230 to keep yourself going. I said, and she then started to tell me about various financial problems she had, which I won't go into. But
so she was bringing this to the workplace. Now, let me just, wow. And Chelsea's like, element, like she's telling callers to go to the competitors. So this lady's tried, how much is 250 pounds in US currency? Tell me in the chat. What is that exactly? Let me know what is the amount for those that can do the currency quickly. She had to be more important, and she's not. She said she had to write down what people were telling her by the sounds of things. Yeah, like she had to be very detailed in descriptions and things like that. You said it was 400. Ooh, so I put the closed captions because I know the accent is a little bit heavy. You said 400 or $319.65 is 250 pounds in U.S. currency. I'm curious. Yeah, how long? I don't think she worked there. Did she say she worked there for like 2 weeks? Phil, not Canadian, love, not Canadian. She didn't work there that long. Okay, Cheeks, did I hear correctly? She only worked there for 2 weeks, and this is what they were encountering? Dollars. You said around 400? Okay, let's keep watching.
But I volunteered to go and speak to her bank to try and help her out. I was trying my level best to give this person a helping hand. And I went down, I spoke to her bank about a week later, smoothed everything out for her. And when I came back to the office, she started saying to me, oh, I've been on the phone all afternoon to the Law Society to find out what will happen if I go bankrupt. I said, well, Fiona, if you want to be a solicitor or ever be in a partnership, that's not the way to go. So anyway, I made a suggestion to her that she might want to sell the old car that she had, which had been the cause of the bill for the breakdown. And at that, she just went completely crazy and started screaming at me. Very similar to the scene in episode 1 in Richard Gadd's show.
What was she screaming?
Don't you speak to me like that. And she did the same thing with a couple of other members of staff. One of my conveyancing staff was trying to show her how to do some kind of clause in a conveyance. And she started shouting the same thing. I mean, don't you say that to me. Don't speak to me like that, but in a very loud and aggressive tone. So it became quite obvious quite quickly that she really wasn't cut out for this kind of thing.
Oh my God.
She, I think one of the other things she did was she phoned up a disabled solicitor that we used to do Edinburgh agency work for. And she phoned him up and said to him, oh, I just want you to know that all the people here in this office, nobody likes you. Everybody says nasty things about you and makes comments about you.
Whoa. Let me, all right, hold up. Let me clear my throat here. This happened in a span of 2 weeks. She called, I guess, a disabled customer person or whatever, one of their clients. And she told him, nobody likes you. This happened in 2 weeks of her working there. Yo, that is the equivalent of, you know how, like, when you write an email and you like carbon copy the whole department and you say, F you, I quit, that would be the equivalent of that. You don't do shit like that. And then you're talking about your financial situation, and here you are, like, now you're putting yourself in a situation where it's like they don't want to have you, and this is the kind of stuff that you're doing. Oh my God. Oh my God.
Now,
what was his disability?
He was, I think he'd had polio, so he couldn't walk properly.
Oh God.
So, you know, it was nasty stuff. She grabbed a phone from one of my members of staff who was on trying to explain something to a client who obviously was giving him some difficulty. And she then started shouting abuse down the phone at the client. So there was a whole number of these incidents. And I had spent a few days in London. I was on the executive of the Association of Personal Injury Lawyers. And I think it was one of their meetings I was at and doing other things in London, seeing clients. And I came back to the office this was at the end of the second week. So there'd been a few incidents I was aware of. But by the time I got back, there was more and more being reported to me. Staff members in tears because of the way she'd spoken to them. So I got her into the office and I said, look, you know, this is not on. I put some of the stuff to her. I asked her about the phone line And she said, no, I didn't do that. I didn't do that. And then she says, oh, well, yes, I did, but I thought it was the right thing to do.
Whoa.
So I just said, well, I don't think, you're cut out for here. So I said to her, I'm afraid that's it. I paid her for the month. She'd only been there 2 weeks and obviously had done nothing apart from cause complete havoc. And then
She paid her for the month and she was only there for 2 weeks and caused all kinds of havoc. She paid her a month's salary and was only there for 2 weeks. Am I hearing that correctly? This is crazy.
then she said, I'm not leaving. I'm going to phone the Law Society. I'm not leaving. And she then started shouting and screaming, running around the office. And eventually, my cashier and I, Caroline, had to get one arm on either side of her and actually march her out of the office. And she stood out there for at least half an hour screaming abuse. And that was when it all started. Thereafter, every day I'd come into the office, the answer phone would be full of messages, all from her, all threatening, nasty.
What kind of threats?
I'll get you. You're not going to get away with this. I'll get Jimmy Ray. All that sort of stuff. I know that sounds a bit vague, but the way it was said was in a very threatening manner.
And how many was she leaving on a daily basis?
Well, the answer phone would be filled up.
How many was that, roughly?
I'm not sure how many messages, but she would rant on. It would take probably about an hour's worth of call.
Every day?
Every day. And then when we amalgamated with the other firms, again, she did the same thing, not necessarily every day by that point. She blew a bit hot and cold, but it was pretty persistent for a couple of years.
That's crazy.
Also,
Years?
Years. She did this for nearly 5 years.
5 years. They had to escort her out, you guys. That is, listen, if you've ever seen anybody get escorted out of a place of employment, like, you may make threats. I've seen it happen before. Let me tell you, man, this is not pretty. It's not pretty whatsoever. Like, that sounds scary. That's like getting law enforcement involved. Get whatever you can involved. That's scary. And yes, Steph, she also advanced her. It sounds like she also gave her like personal monies as well. 2 weeks. 2 weeks of employment, 5 years of stalking. 5 years of this behavior. 2 weeks of employment. This is not cute. This is like, I don't even know. You said, I hope she does. April says, I hope she didn't put him down as a reference. Oh my God. I hope so, not either.
So what she would do, given that way back in 1997, this was really at the start of the internet, so people weren't emailing to the same extent they do now. What she would do would be phone up other solicitors or send them faxes with defamatory stuff about me, saying how terrible I was, how terrible the firm was, accusing people of everything under the sun. And then, I would get phone calls from people I didn't know who would say, I'm really embarrassed. I've had this fax through from this woman. I don't know her and I don't know you, but I thought I ought to bring it to your attention. So I had issued the staff with panic alarms, right back at the beginning when all this started, because, I had grown adults in tears, terrified that she was going to harm them, terrified that something awful was going to happen.
She also
sad.
claimed that you and your husband, Jimmy, who's sadly no longer with us, but he accused you of assaulting your 3-year-old son, Frankie, who was born with a rare chromosomal disorder.
Well, that was that was the point at which I thought I can take no more of this. I had heard from a lawyer some months before that who phoned me, who'd taken her on. And he said to me that he was in a terrible state because he'd fired her and he went home that night to find 2 social workers at his door. The police were involved. It was all taken very seriously. And the accusation was that he'd been abusing his children. This went to the children's schools and so on. This man was on his knees and really upset. And I said, well, all I could do is perhaps speak to the sort of things she's done to me. So when I was going to go to the bar in 2003, I had to do some exams the year before that. So I went to Strathclyde University, and who's the first person I see when I get to the university to start doing a couple of classes but her? I couldn't believe it, because at that point it had gone a bit quiet. And there she was. And from then on, she followed me around the university. She would stand right up beside me and so on. So I complained to the professor at the university. And again, stalking wasn't really taken that seriously by people. I think people just assumed, oh, it's two women who just don't get on or something like that. So he said, oh, well, I've checked her records and she's not registered as a student here, so I've got no locus over her. And I said, well, if she's not registered as a student, can you not just throw her out, get the security? And so I don't like to do that. Now, by the end of the university year, I got a letter to say that he apologised because she'd gone on to upset a number of members of staff, harass them and other students. So she knew that I'd made a complaint about them. So one day, just after I made the complaint, I go home to find two social workers at my door saying to me, you know, we have some very serious allegations. So I said to them, well, come in. And I said, before you say anything to me, I said, and I do understand you've got a job to do and it's a very important job. I said, but I want to tell you what I think is going on here. So I explained to them about the other lawyer. I explained to them everything, and they confirmed, oh yes, it's a woman who says that she's at university with you. Now, initially she gave a false name of another student, and it wasn't the other student because I contacted the other student.
This is like next level, you guys. And Lulubug, I would agree with you. Like, the level that this woman went, right, Pebbles? Like, the level that this woman, listen, is you find her at a university you go to. She was only employed for 2 weeks. This is scary when people start contacting your place of employment, your, you know, licensure, CPS or whatever, based on the fact that they're upset with you or your jujitsu class or whatever it may be. This is the kind of stuff that becomes very scary, because you know that these people would go to an extent that you wouldn't even think over the internet or over an opinion or over, you know, if they were employed for 2 weeks and this happened. This is scary. This is very scary, and it could jeopardize your child's placement, safety, your livelihood. Like, people, no.
But to cut a long story short, she made 5 complaints to the social work department, eventually screaming at them down the phone, demanding that my severely disabled son be taken into care. Now, to my mind, that was the point at which I thought, no, enough is enough. I'm not having this. I'm not having this poor child beleaguered in that way. So I contacted the police. The police didn't do anything. But I was a consultant to Drummond Miller solicitors, and so they did the interim interdict for
So this is, again, a crucial part of this. And before we get to the interim interdict, I just want to ask you, she said to me she wasn't let go from your firm, but instead she walked.
Well, she was walked out the door, if I can put it that way.
But it certainly wasn't.
She was walked out.
It wasn't at her volition.
She said she never had any legal proceedings or restraining orders against her. But you say, and you provided documentary evidence of this, that there wasn't an interim interdict against her. Now, just very simply explain what that is.
So this is that legal part, that interdict. I think that's how you say that. Sarah, you're right. The problem is that if you give people like an inch, they take a mile. Boundaries have to be clear and strong and consistent. You are so right about that. Like, I think the problem that I have with at least baby Reindeer, right? Because, you know, like I said, when you go through trauma, like something like Richard Gatt went through, and I do believe, regardless of, you know, what people may think or say about Richard Gatt, because some folks have criticized what he's done and maybe how he maybe fed into Martha or Fiona, okay? I think that if if you are a victim of this and it's become to the point where you are able to identify or self-identify with that perpetrator or the person that is stalking you, like, then you really need to step yourself out and find out, well, like, whose feelings are you prioritizing? And it goes along with that, Sarah. It's like, you have to put your boundaries down, clear and consistent of it. When somebody doesn't want contact with you and you're consistently contacting them, when they've put their foot down in the sand, and I've had this happen too, right? When I was in my 20s, I mean, I can tell you a lot of stories, but if you don't put your foot down and if you're willfully leading folks, it is very scary and you have to be very careful. But on the other end of this, you have to know what no means no for both men and women. When somebody doesn't want phone contacts with you and they've blocked you, take that as a sign that they don't want anything to do with you. Like, fuck your feelings. It doesn't matter. It's a safety concern. It needs to be, consensual. Like, you can't just keep going with this contact and persist and think that somehow you're justified because your mental health is not on check. And we cannot give a pass to Fiona or anybody out there that's clearly unwell. Your mental health, my mental health, is not your responsibility. You're not responsible for my not being able to check myself, right? Vice versa. So we do need to be very careful about these boundaries. And Pebbles, thank you for renewing your membership. Shout out to you. But honestly, like, that's what you would wonder. Like, why can't the police do anything? Well, this is where we get to that part, okay? And this is, again, Laura's story.
Well, in Scotland at the time, there was no procedure for harassment type cases. The only thing you could use was this procedure for interdict, which is when you want to try and get the court to stop someone from doing something that you fear they may do. So that's the purpose of an interdict. Now, because often the circumstances can be acute, you can apply for an interim interdict, which means there's an initial hearing before a judge who decides whether, on the basis of the information, it's appropriate to grant what is essentially a restraining order, an interim interdict. So that was granted.
And we've seen the documents to support that, both the claim and the fact that it was granted.
Yeah, so there is an initial writ that sets out all the circumstances on which you're asking the judge to find that, there are grounds for concern here.
Right.
And they're set out.
And it's basically what you've been detailing to me about the terrible way she behaved in the office, and afterwards, even worse, obviously, and then the accusations against you and your husband about your son and so on. And what happened once that interim interdict was issued?
Well, it was served on her by sheriff officers. And then she had...
And again, for viewers who are curious, the Sheriffdom of Glasgow and Strathkelvin at Glasgow, this is the initial writ here, and we've seen the follow-up documentation leading to the granting of the interim interdict. So
I was contacted by the solicitors to say it had been granted by the sheriff and that it was then served upon her, the court order. She then had 21 days in which to put in a notice of intention to defend, which she didn't do. And she then would have had to put in defences. Now, what she says is that there is copy correspondence that I've sent you where she contacted someone at Drummond Miller, one of the more senior partners there, who's now a judge. She contacted him to say that she wasn't going to send him a copy of the defences and she was terribly busy, but she would get them in the next couple of days. She never put in any defences at all. So my solicitors then contacted the court some weeks later, having waited for all the appropriate time periods, and asked if they could, what would happen then. And basically they were told, well, the sheriff doesn't want to grant the permanent interdict against her until there is any further behaviour.
Wow.
So the interdict lasted for a year and a day. And
the court didn't want to grant anything permanent until there was further behavior. Like, that shit just is crazy. It's like, well, the court doesn't this isn't a situation where it's freedom of speech. This woman showed a pattern of behavior that after 2 weeks of being given employment and being helped, and like, she was not going to give this up. That is crazy to me. Chelsea says, I agree. If you number is blocked, you shouldn't contact them again, period. Showing where they're crazy, absolutely. But it is, somebody said in the chat that this is like a broken justice system. It absolutely is, when it comes to stalking, and especially now putting this whole situation with the online, right? Because what is happening a lot is, and I'll say this by experience, because I've had experiences here on YouTube where I've had to see a judge. When people take this communication, social media stuff a little too far, one thing that I learned, and is speaking by a couple of attorney friends that I have, anytime you like you put the @ sign to a person that you're trying to communicate, or you hashtag a person, that is considered communication, because you're directing a direct message to a person, right? And if that person has blocked you, and there is, show cause of that, and you show that you're not trying to have contact with this person, like is done datas, like we're like, you don't want contact, and you've asked folks to leave you alone multiple times, at some point freedom of speech that's not it. It's harassment, or it's stalking, or it's too much, right? And so I find it so interesting, and I feel like, and I'm just praying, and y'all know I pray that at some point we get in our judicial system where the system is able to view what is actual First Amendment versus what is actual stalking behavior, or what is actual harassment. Like, those things are not very well defined. So like, when she said that, the court didn't want to grant her X, Y, and Z because they wanted to see if she would continue the behavior. No, she already had a pattern of behavior. Why do we need to see? Does somebody need to die? Like, is that what needs to happen? Does somebody need to get really hurt? Is that what needs to happen? Because people play with people's lives here all the time. And in this situation, that's what it looked like it happened, you know?
And knowing that she doesn't know anything about procedure and wasn't a qualified solicitor, we reckoned that she might not know that it wasn't actually going to be valid a year later. So it was valid for a year and a day. I never heard from her for 22 years. So the interim interdict did what I was hoping it would do. What we had agreed with the solicitors was that if she came back after a year and a day, we would just take out another interim interdict.
You never had to, because she disappeared.
I never had to, because she disappeared.
And what was that feeling like when she disappeared?
It was relief, absolute relief. I mean, I had enough on my plate. Jimmy had a stroke about a year after all this. I was looking after Frankie, who's severely handicapped.
That was her husband, by the way.
Exactly what was wrong.
Do you think Jimmy's health was affected adversely by all the stress of this, or not?
Jimmy was a pretty resilient guy, so no, I don't think.
So Jimmy was her husband, by the way, for those, sorry, I spoke during that time. Yeah, all the red flags are not for hindsight. They are for preventing. Thank you, Kate. And Chico is shared that the police didn't even believe me, so I gave up. I had blood and scratches all over me. Never once put my hands on them, and police threatened to take me to jail. So yeah, the justice system sucks. Rem Art says, our laws haven't caught up with the internet on the subject. You're right, Rem. I've experienced this like recent. And it's really hard to prosecute for something that hasn't happened. This is truly a broken process and system. Like, even with No Nora or other folks that have experienced this, that people have to degrade you, sexualize you, or have you like lose your license, your job, being kicked out of a fucking gym, having small businesses threatened. These are things that, like, it's almost like shit has to happen in order for for folks to be prosecuted or be held accountable. That's the scary part. And somehow, like, people will say, well, this is my trauma and I'm expressing my trauma. Well, at some point, I am not responsible for your trauma, and y'all aren't responsible for mine. You have to understand that. It's one thing to come to the internet and share your experiences, but at the end of the day, I don't let this app isn't my therapist. This app isn't my health insurance, if that makes sense. This app is an app. I check in, I check out, I do my content. I'm treating this like a content creator, like a job, right? So I don't put all of my stresses out on y'all, because that's not what you guys are here for. We're here to talk about all of this, all the societal stuff that happens, or true crime, or whatever may be happening. But I don't verbal vomit everything that's happening here and then allow you guys to consume that, because that's not safe. That's not okay either. Layla says, I had a restraining order put against my psychotic ex. It didn't stop him from contacting me and threatening to unalive other men who spoke to me. He stopped contacting me in 2015 and 2016. That is crazy. Yeah. Yeah. And I think the reason the permanent restraining orders are usually only put in place when there's a violence in the US is because the accused stalker will lose some of their constitutional rights. You're right. I think that there needs to be more looking into this. And CK says, seems like the justice system sucks everywhere. LAPD. Seems like roles of PF law enforcement have reversed. Ouch. Boundaries and accountability. Ken Cole, that's it. That's it. You guys don't think I don't have stresses in my relationships, in my family. Y'all don't think I don't have that, but I don't come in here and verbal vomit to y'all because it's not safe. It's not. And I am responsible for my own mental health, for my own everything, sobriety included. I am responsible for my own mental health. Okay? Not you guys. So whatever trauma I'm going through, I cannot put this out here and allow y'all to sort it out for me, because it doesn't work that way. All right? A true professional will know that and will catch that right away. Get that right away. Let's keep watching.
I think he was more worried about me and about Frankie than he was about her harming him.
I mean, to have social workers turn up at your door with that kind of allegation when your son is already pretty disabled, it's hard to imagine many worse things for someone to do to someone.
Well, exactly. And I was horrified. I couldn't believe that anyone could be so callous and cruel. It's one thing having a go at me. I didn't mind that to the same extent. And, she called me a lot of names. She's continuing to do so.
Yes, she is. And your letter to me when you contacted me was, unfortunately for me, I'm now collateral damage because Netflix allowed Miss Harvey to be so easily identified.
Yes.
Which I think is inarguable. Have Netflix made any attempt to approach you?
Well, their solicitors spoke to me. They contacted somebody through the Mail and Sunday, who then contacted me and asked me, would I speak to their lawyers? So I had a conversation with them, and really what they wanted from me was a copy of the interim.
And when was this?
About a week ago, I spoke to them.
A week ago, but you hadn't heard from them before that?
I hadn't heard from them before that. Certainly nobody approached me to say there's going to be a story coming out in which it will be very obvious that you are one of the victims.
Do you think from that it would be correct to assume they may be panicking a bit, Netflix, about the fallout from all this?
Well, I really don't know. I can't speak.
This is very odd to me. They've asked you for documentary evidence to support something which is a major plank of their series.
Yeah. Well, I suppose they've got to show that what they have done is materially true or substantially true.
Was what they put in Baby Reindeer materially true about you?
Yes.
Oh, well, man.
In the sense that there was a character who was a mother, that there was nothing of that in mind. But the thrust of it, which was that she was sad.
Do you guys think that she is now a casualty because of the Netflix document, if you watched it? Because like I said, there's no character, there's no Laura Wray character, but she is mentioned because Richard Gatt in the docuseries says that, he started looking into Martha or Fiona, right? And then started finding out all these articles of, Martha stalking. And so then she gets mentioned, and then she's later identified once Fiona was identified. I think that she's a casualty. I think that Netflix, listen, in my opinion, and Piers also feels the same way. All right. So if y'all like Piers, I don't always agree with everything that Piers says, but I do agree on this one. She was made a casualty. Netflix was very they weren't careful in what they were putting out there. They didn't do enough to conceal certain names. For internet sleuths, like for folks just to do a Google search and look up some of these tweets to figure out who Fiona Harvey is, and then people are messing with the hornet's nest, that's really what it is. You guys, now Fiona Harvey's out there. Everybody's watching Fiona. There's like support groups for Fiona Harvey, people that actually support the behavior that Fiona Harvey has done. That's scary, right? So I personally think that it has been very much like reckless of Netflix not to have put a stop to this, not to have said, like, listen, we need to change some names, do a little bit better, do something else, because now she's a casualty. We don't know whether it's Fiona Harvey or other Fiona Harvey's supporters or those that are like Fiona Harvey's that'll go after these folks. It's scary, very scary.
Sacked from a law firm and turned on her boss. That's true.
Yeah.
That somebody in it was a barrister. I'm now a barrister, so I think that's where that bit comes from. And the bit about the sick stalker targeting the deaf child is absolutely clearly a reference taken along with everything else.
No question. I mean, that's just straight from this story.
Yeah.
Have you ever met Richard Gadd?
No.
Because I put this question to her about how unusual it is to have somebody stalking two completely different people, both of whom, by her estimation, are fantasizing. Let's take a look. Why would two people who have no contact with each other at all, Laura Wray and Richard Gadd, why would they both portray?
She's doing it again. I don't know. Some of y'all said that was like a normal thing or whatever. Shout out to everybody. You said, I agree, Rabbit. Our friends are not mental or medical professionals. Medical professionals are trained to call the police or counsel us to contact a professional for help. That's exactly it. So, and I've seen a lot here on the internet, you know, since this app, there are people here that weaponize mental health. And this is where I get really, I get really triggered by that. Not because, how do I say this? Like, I get it that y'all are awesome and I love you guys and everything, but people do weaponize a lot of mental health stuff here. And we need to be mindful and be able to call that out. And there's nothing wrong with saying that, you know, I'm going to call this out. Like, y'all are not responsible for my mental health. You guys are not responsible for the trauma that I went through or whatever drug or whatever stuff that I've gone through in my past. It's one thing for me to share my story in order for you guys to be able to take from that and build upon that or learn from it. But it's different if I come up here and try to consistently push a narrative or put something out there. Now, there's freedom of speech. Do what you may. But that behavior does impact others. And you guys might have professional skills, but you're not here to resolve my life, if that makes sense. So we do have to be very careful about that. Heidi says, yeah, it's a bit cringy. It's a bit cringy to hear her voice, but that's just my thought.
You as a very unpleasant.
I don't know why Richard Gadd has, but Laura Walker, it was certainly because I was going for parliamentary selection.
The two different, you get my point, two different people.
Yeah, but Richard Gadd has Googled that. Richard Gadd has used that as
well, that's in the drama.
Show.
Is when they find out that you had previously harassed this family.
I haven't harassed that family.
When you saw
I haven't harassed that family, she said.
What went through your mind?
I was horrified. I mean, I've actually watched your interview a few times because the first time I saw it, I was in such shock watching her, seeing her, it just brought it all back again. And I've watched it.
Can you imagine that the person that's saying, I've never harassed, I've never done anything, and then you're watching them in the interview, and then you're replaying that, and you're like, oh my God, that would frustrate me too if I was a victim of this woman. And I honestly believe everything that Laura Wray is saying. Honestly, like, I honestly believe that she went through a lot of stuff with this woman, and we're only getting to the surface of it. Exactly, with the straight face. But that's just my thought. Yeah. Thank you, CK. You're right. We have to be very careful, and be careful with creators like that. You just have to be mindful of people that weaponize mental health here on YouTube.
it several times to see what is it she's saying about me. And it's unbelievable that after the things she did, that she can say she wasn't harassing my family. Of course she was harassing my family.
For many years.
For many years. For longer than Richard Gadd.
Wow.
When you've seen the fallout from the Netflix series plus my interview, particularly around the fact that she's adamant that she's never been in court, let alone admitted to stalking him or being convicted, and there is no apparent evidence she ever was convicted of any crime. What do you make of that? Because that goes right to the heart, for many people, of the integrity of Richard Gadd's story.
It's hard to say, really. I mean, I can't say whether she's got any convictions or not. I know that the newspapers have looked for them and can't find them. In Scotland, convictions can be spent after a certain number of years.
But it says that she was convicted, for example, for 4.5 years for what she did to you and your family.
Well, she wasn't convicted for that. I didn't press any kind of criminal charges.
So that is untrue.
So that's untrue.
I mean, again, back to Netflix's duty of care. They're making it very...
So Netflix ran this plot. They said that Martha, aka Fiona Harvey, had been convicted of stalking, went to prison. There's a whole scene that shows that, right? Whole scene that shows that. So keep that in mind. Like, this woman doesn't have a record of this. So this is where potentially Fiona Harvey might have a case of something against Netflix. Snow says, I also feel Netflix should have said based on a true story, not this is a true story. It may have kept people from looking for these people. Absolutely. But Snow, like, I just always assume that anything that's based on a true story is, I'm always going to side eye it. Hey, Grape Tea, I'm always going to side eye it. Like, no matter what, because I never really know. But I didn't even know people were actually looking. They really went looking for this woman and they found her. Okay. And then in defense of Fiona Harvey, I'm just going, like, if I was Fiona Harvey, I wouldn't want people saying that I was convicted of stalking and I don't have a record. Yeah, I'm going to come back and defend myself. That's the only defense that I would give her at this point. She should, April. I'm surprised she doesn't have a record. As extensive as the stalking, situation has been reported, because this is her second, and we can't say it's a victim because he hasn't been convicted, but this would be the second person that has had these encounters with Fiona Harvey and no record. And it sounds like in some countries or whatever, some of the stuff is like suspended or it can be removed. Unlike in the US, a felony, a misdemeanor, you can find things like that from people's backgrounds, right? Monica says there are some things that didn't happen. That's where Netflix messed up. They should have worded that differently. You're right. I put the disclaimer on the community wall, and it was almost like something was everything that was said was based on true life events or something like that, and that was period, except for some things that we changed at the very end. And it's like, that's still confusing, because it can't be based on true events if you change some stuff. It just does. That sentence structure was really off, but you're right on that. Let's keep watching.
Very easy for both Fiona Harvey and you to be quickly identified.
Yeah.
And yet a material fact that she was sent to prison for 4.5 years for harassing you and your family, like it appears the same thing that Richard Gadd is saying about what happened to him, but neither of those things may be true.
Well, it doesn't appear they are true.
And you're a lawyer. It's quite a serious leap to go from somebody who may be harassing people, trolling, a nasty, abusive person, to a convicted criminal. Do you think?
Well, I agree with you. I mean, I don't think for the sort of things she did to me, even if I had pressed for some kind of criminal conviction, I don't think she would have got very long, if any kind of custodial sentence.
Would she now, do you think? The same thing? Have the laws tightened on this?
I don't think so. I mean, I spoke to the police not so long ago and asked them about this, and certainly in Scotland, the law hasn't changed in line with the way it has in England on stalkers. So it's still very difficult. Basically, the police say unless she actually comes up and physically attacks me, there's nothing they can do to protect me.
And how does, given the fact that journalists have been investigating whether she might be moving back to your area or looking for someone to live there, how does that make you feel?
frightened.
What do you think she might be capable of doing?
I don't know. I mean, I think one of the interesting things has been in all the press that has been about this, there's been a number of articles by psychiatrists who say that she probably has some kind of personality disorder. I don't know, I'm not a doctor. And that she may have some sort of delusional disorder, and that people with these kind of disorders actually believe everything they say. And that kind of, you know, in a weird way makes sense to me, because she contradicted herself right, left and centre on your show. I have correspondence in which she contradicts herself, which she says doesn't exist.
Yep.
But I think she maybe genuinely does believe.
Yes, I felt
in her own little parallel universe.
I
that
felt
this is
that
true.
she was peddling lines that she may believe, which is
She genuinely believes, and that's the scary part, is when somebody genuinely believes that there's more, or like they didn't send 4,000 emails or 400,000 emails. She genuinely believed everything that she put out there, and that's based on what we were watching. We could tell that she was lying, or there were certain things that kind of led us to believe, but it lends itself to a personality disorder. Now, let me show you guys something real quick. This is the Netflix disclaimer. I did post this about 3 weeks ago. A shout out to the person that sent this to me. This is what the Netflix disclaimer said. It said, this motion picture is protected under the laws of the United States and other countries. Any unauthorized use may result in civil liability and criminal prosecution. This program is based on real events. ... Okay, the little dots there. However, certain characters, names, incidents, locations, and dialogues have been fictionalized for dramatic purposes. Film with the support of the British Film Institute, yada, yada, yada. This program is based on real events. Real events. Okay? So, is that enough to say that they covered themselves? I guess that's up to, you know, that's up for debate. Can you put that blanket and then not be sued?
which is delusional, but that may be the case. But I also think that she may have a very legitimate case against Netflix, Richard Gadd, Clerkenwell Films, if it turns out she's never been convicted of any crimes. Twice in that series, both in relation to you and Richard Gadd, she's getting lengthy prison sentences for the stalking, and that doesn't appear to be true.
Well, I agree with you, but I think what you then have to look at is what is that actually worth in terms of damages. So you have to prove that your reputation has been damaged. As far as I understand it, I'm not aware that Fiona has ever held down a job anywhere. So I don't think there's any claim for loss of earnings.
But she has got...
I don't know. See, this is where I disagree. I do feel like this is where Netflix fucked up. They shouldn't have said that this woman got a criminal record and then made her so easily identifiable, right? Because honestly, if she didn't have a job before and she couldn't hold employment, is she going to be able to hold employment now? Is somebody going to employ her knowing that her last job, she only worked there for 2 weeks and she couldn't hold it down? God knows, I'm thinking that's her last job. There could have been other jobs. But let's be real. They could have done a better job in protecting the main characters of this. No, they use other names. They change some of their names, but where they messed up is they use some of the real tweets, some of the because you know how you can search like a tweet, right, based on the narrative or the content, and you can pull that up and actually find out who said that or whatever. Like you can actually do that on Twitter. That's what they did. That's how they found her. They connected the dots, Pebbles. That's how they found out. That's why Fiona, they basically found out who the real Fiona or Martha was. Yeah, Netflix isn't exactly clean when it comes to being truthful. There's a lot of BS in the Tiger King, for example. Yeah. See, the last big movie that had like Netflix like this was Tiger King. Y'all remember Tiger King was a huge thing. That was what, 4 or 5 years ago? Everybody was on Tiger King. And we wanted to find out about, that Carol. Y'all remember that? We wanted to find out more. I mean, yeah. So keep that in mind.
Has got top lawyers now, both here and in the US, going after Netflix quite hard.
Well,
You think she has got a good case?
well, I'm sure she may have a good case, but the question is then certainly in Scotland, what would it be worth? You're looking at somebody who has a pattern of stalking, who stalked quite a number of people apart from myself. People have been coming out of the woodwork to me, frightened to come forward, but letting me know that they know what's going on.
Do you have any doubt that she is a dangerous stalker?
I have no doubt she's a dangerous stalker, no doubt whatsoever.
Yeah, I agree with that.
What has this being raked up done to you?
Well, it's made me very anxious. Certainly, you know, it's every so often. I mean, every day I can't stop thinking about it, and I can't stop obsessively watching YouTube and all these different channels where people are exploring the ins and outs of it.
Because you didn't want to do an interview like this. You wanted this all just to, as it had been for a long time, just be part of the past.
Yeah.
But you felt compelled to because everyone was talking about you.
Well, I'm an advocate. I've got a reputation to defend, and the sting of what she says about me is basically that I'm a liar. And that I'm an incompetent lawyer. So that's not good news if you're an advocate.
That's right.
In professional practice. And I certainly wouldn't want any of my clients, my solicitors who instruct me, or any clients that I represent to think any of that is true.
Have you considered suing her?
Well, I am considering suing her. And certainly if Netflix give her £11 million, I'll be suing her.
Oh.
Problem is that if she has no money, reparation claims are very expensive to mount. There's very little point in me suing her if she's got nothing.
Has Richard Gadd made any attempt to reach out to you at all?
None at all.
Would you have expected him to?
Well,
I mean, without him putting all this onto first an Edinburgh show and then
I think Netflix should have reached out to her. I think Netflix could have done a better job, but that's just my thought. Heidi says, yeah, love Tiger King, that Carol Baskin, that bitch. Carol Baskin, that bitch. You know, she has a YouTube channel too, y'all. You know that, right?
smash hit Netflix series, it would never have come to this.
Well, I don't know what I would expect. I've never met him, and I can understand that, you know, he has written what I think is a very compelling TV series. He's done very well out of it, and I sort of wish him well on that. I do think that when he says that he changed all the details so that people wouldn't recognise her and she wouldn't recognise herself, that is just untrue. I mean, he could easily have made her somebody who didn't look like Fiona Harvey, who was, say, an accountant
It's
or a
changed
doctor.
The story completely. I mean, one of the Netflix chief executives, he's the Netflix policy chief. He went into the UK Parliament several weeks ago and he said this.
Baby Reindeer is an extraordinary story, and it is obviously a true story of the horrific abuse that the writer and protagonist Richard Gadd suffered at the hands of a convicted stalker. We did take every reasonable precaution in disguising.
This is the guy from Netflix. She wasn't convicted of stalking. Hey, Poe, what? This is where they get in trouble, y'all. This is a real story, a true story. No, it wasn't a real story or a true story.
Disguising the real life identities of the people involved in that story.
Your response to that?
Well, I disagree completely with what he says. That's just not the case.
Do you feel better for doing an interview about this?
I do. I have to say it has made me feel much better because I feel I've got my point of view across and I can now just try and put this to bed and ignore it.
Have you been getting an adverse reaction from people?
Well, my colleagues and friends obviously not. And my colleagues at the bar have been very supportive. But certainly online, I've had adverse comments. There is now a Fiona Harvey support group who are commenting that I look like a man and that I am Richard Gadd's trans girlfriend, or suggesting that may be the case. And I'd like to refute both of those, Piers.
Whoa, they're mean. What? She's been attacked. Hey, Artie. Hey, everybody. Wouldn't have the Titanic movie if this wasn't done. They've had to dramatize the storyline in order to make it a bigger picture. Did y'all think that the Titanic was based on a true story? Because they didn't base that on a true story. I mean, not the plot. I mean, we know Titanic is true, but like Jack and Rose was not true, right? Y'all know that, right? Certain things might have been like maybe certain characters might have been true, but not everything was accurate. Records are difficult to get and disappear after a few years in the UK. Really? Oh my God.
Years.
Do you think she's capable of violence against you? Is that what worries you?
Well, that is what worries me, yes. I don't know what she's capable of because I don't even think she would remember thereafter. So I don't know what she is capable of. But
No.
if somebody threatens to kill you on several occasions, just because they may have personality disorders, doesn't mean that they won't actually try and do it.
You think she might?
Exactly. Pebble says Jack will always be real to me. Listen, the only movie that got me really scared the shit out of me because I thought it was real was the Blair Witch Project. That was one. You said the band did. You could say that was real because I heard that did happen. Poe said, well, maybe if I wrote, you haven't watched the Titanic? You got to go watch it, Poe. You got to go. It's a almost 4 hour movie, but you got to watch it. There's a difference between building a story around a historical event and dramatizing something that supposedly actually happened. You're right. That's very much true. But the Blair Witch Project did get me thinking that was real. But then again, I was young and naive. I think I was like a freshman in high school when that shit came out. So keep that in mind. Yeah, I was pretty young. But I did think those commercials were pretty scary. And it looks like it was filmed out of a camcorder. So I definitely thought that the Blair Witch Project was real. Mm-hmm.
Do you mind? Was capable of that?
Well, I seem to have been her major obsession over all these years. Because it's lasted the longest with me. So I could quite see, depending on how you looked at things, that she maybe sees me as some sort of enemy and that maybe feels compelled to do something to harm me further.
Do you have a message for her if she's watching this?
Oh.
Well, I think my message would be, I think you need to get some help. I think you need to get psychiatric help as soon as possible.
Oh.
And I think you need to get off Facebook and stop sending emails and so on to people because you're doing yourself no favours if you are going to sue Netflix.
Laura Wray, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Whoa, she said get some help. I have a feeling she's going to get a lot more emails from folks. Okay? This might have been a very much a difficult thing to say. Okay? I don't know if I necessarily agree with all that. But she just needs to be very careful. That's all. And that's for Laura Wray. But shout out to her. And I'm glad she spoke out. I'm glad she said her side. But I think that she is a casualty now because of Netflix. That's just my thought. Yeah, I like her too, right, Lauren? She seems like a good woman for sure. She seems like she's telling her. I believe her. I believe she's telling the truth. CK says that Blair Witch was terrifying. Yeah, I haven't, you said the Godzilla was a tearjerker. Oh Lord. The Notebook was one time was fine, but watching it over and over was too much for me. You were the same age, I swear. I thought the Blair Witch Project was real, especially because the commercials were like in the middle of the night. That's why, they were right after the Girls Gone Wild commercial, so it was just a little too much. I thought it was real. But I guess we'll see what happens. And I do think that Laura Wray needs to be careful. All right. I want to get to the last topic, which is this whole. All right. So for those, I've done a couple deep dives on Kim Kardashian and Ray J, specifically on the sex tape, going back to that. So Ray J had this interview with Club Shay. Okay. For those that don't know, this is his channel. Check it out. And he's done, Club Shay has done a couple of pretty iconic interviews. He did one with Cat Williams, and there's been some other ones. But this one kind of drove me a little bit crazy because Ray J, so for those, give you some backstory, there is a sex tape that set Kim Kardashian's career, right? That's how we know Kim Kardashian is through the sex tape, right? And I didn't like this interview for Ray J because I feel like he just danced through the issues and didn't really get to the questions. It really made me side-eye Ray J. Now, I really like Ray J the artist. Growing up, I had a crush on Ray J. I think everybody did. Love Ray J, the artist, not the reality TV show star. Because I think that it took away from his talents a bit. This man is very talented. I mean, he's a talented man. I'll give you that. But a lot of what he's done after during the reality TV stuff, it just gave me a different taste of Ray J that I have a hard time seeing him as an artist. Does that make sense? Can anybody else relate to this? That's how I feel. So he finally talks about Kim Kardashian and the sex tape. Now, last year where he went about exposing Kim K and the sex tape? And now he's changing his tone a little bit. And I don't know how I feel about that. And I might do a little bit of a deep dive about this. Yeah, the leaked sex tape, not leaked by the Kardashians. Sure, exactly. Like, why is he changing the story now, April? I'm so glad y'all watched some of this. I'm glad. But I don't like that because listen, he went on a thing. And I'm going to do a deep dive on this again. But I don't like what he did here. I don't know. Yeah, I hate the fact that, especially because Ray J didn't have to do this, in my opinion. Because he's talented. Like, he came from a talented family. So I don't really like this whole little look here. But just giving some commentary, and I might do a bigger deep dive on this.
Does my shit stink? No, because I be smoking a blunt when I'm taking a shit, so you can't really smell it. But it still stinks. Right. If I didn't like the blunt. So I keep a blunt lit. But my ass, and I don't mean to talk about my ass, but it's no more better than anybody else's ass just because I got a little money. And that's why if I make money and I say, shit, we made 80 million in the last 3 years. You know why that goes over everybody's head? Because it doesn't sound believable. It's absolutely absurd. Right. So why would we even listen to you say that, right? Right. And so that's the underestimation of money and what it does when you don't act like you have it.
Yes.
Or you don't act like that is what makes you who you are.
You see what this family, the Kardashians, have been able to do. You look at Kim, who's a billionaire. You look at the younger sister, Kylie. She's
love what Kylie's doing. Amazing.
Close to a billionaire, if not a billionaire. All the family.
For sure be for Kendall. And I love what Kendall's doing and Kylie.
How different are their lives minus this tape?
That's a crazy question, man.
Because we know who their father is, because he was one of the lead attorneys on OJ. Rest his soul.
Rest OJ too. Damn, that nigga just died. Rest in peace, OJ. He was a cold one.
So we knew who they were. We knew that family, but we knew him.
Can I get some of that OJ we had last night? That shit was killer.
There you go.
That shit was good as fuck. The duck oranges.
See, this is what frustrates me about. I don't know if he's trying to he's trying to be funny here, and I get that, but it just drives me crazy because he literally went through a whole fucking. Monica, you picked that joke up between him and Kim Kardashian. Like, they make these jokes, and it's like, listen, that man died. And we don't know if he confessed to anything at this point, right? He couldn't have been. There was no double jeopardy, right? Like, it would have been what it was. But Ray J went last year, was it 2022, where he went out there exposing the Kar Jenner family, talking about the setup of a sex tape and how he's been, made to look as this bad guy. And this is the narrative where he kind of gets in the mud, where I'm like, I don't even see you as a victim of this anymore. I mean, he made money off of this, but this shit isn't funny. Like, it really did get to me, and bad taste, bad interview, bad.
So, I didn't mean that. That was distasteful and disgraceful.
Yes, it was.
And that's not okay. And I want to apologize to everybody in here.
Apologize to the family. Apologize to the Brown family. That's who needs to apologize, honestly.
Okay. So, I'm sorry.
And your best guess, how different is that family, or is that family life?
I think more of the question is, how different would we all be? how different would this whole fucking thing be? How different would the industry be? How different would the wheel roll? Everything would be different. We would all be different. All of us. Everybody in here would be different. We'll have on different clothes.
What you mean?
Yeah, he does look. He looks lit. He looks lit.
Everything would be different. Meaning, like, you would never ask me that question. Meaning, if we sat here right now, and we got to this point, what, like, I don't know. Probably more people would be going to college, and you know what I'm saying, getting an education to be successful. There might not be any OnlyFans and other things like that, other opportunities like that. So, I mean, are we a part of the cure? Are we a part of the disease? I don't fucking know. All I know is I'm just trying to make it right.
Were you ever embarrassed when the tape came out?
Yeah. I have kids now, so when I have kids,
and
everything that we did now when I have kids is just totally different. The whole thing is wacky. Before I was just like, but with my kids, it's not okay. And so I can't, without me going too far into it, without me getting in trouble. Yeah, I mean, nah, it's not okay now. But I'm 43 with a kid that's 4 and a kid that's 6. My daughter's 6, my son's 4. And even though you're young, and even in that young kid world, they'll all probably think it's fucking cool.
Yeah.
Until you have kids. Right. And you have a daughter. And there's some of the shit. Right. We're fine. Everything's fine.
How did you find out that the tape had gotten leaked? Where were you when you found out? Did your homies tell you? Did your mom call you like, Ray J, you need to get home? You need to. Where were you the moment that you found out that Ray J is on tape having sex?
Ray J was there when this shit was signed. What is like, see what I'm saying? It's like, why are we changing the narrative to this? Ray J exposed this several times with messages. He looks like he's high as a kite, right? Like, he is being weird. And I think whoever's sitting in the chat, he's trying to have like an Orlando Brown moment. Boo, you signed the paperwork. This is what frustrates me about, like, we're gonna do a deeper dive on this shit again, because I hate that he did this. I hate that he did this.
So long ago, all I remember is how it smells. I'm just playing. I can't.
He wants this to go viral so bad. I cannot.
I didn't mean that either.
Anyways, y'all can go watch that. I'm gonna be doing a bigger, deeper dive on this with a short video. You guys know how, right? Grape Tea, did you pick that up? See, he's trying too hard. He's trying too hard. Didn't he make that song, I Hit It First, yada, yada, when she married Kanye West? He was so, like, I don't know. And did you know that Kanye West gave him a Balenciaga straight jacket? These people are too weird for me. These people are too weird for me. He wants to go viral for the wrong fucking reasons. Like, didn't he just had a hit with Sukihana right now? Like, recently they had did this little song or whatever. I cannot. Anyways, y'all, I gotta let you guys go because I gotta go tend to baby Bunny. Are you okay, Mama? You're fine? I gotta tend to baby Bunny. She says she's fine. I asked her if she's okay. She says she's fine. I will see you guys on the next one. I'll do a shorter video. Yeah, hit the like button, please, and thank you. And let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'll add timestamps if you're on the replay game, okay? Shout out to you guys. Thank you guys for being here. I know. Look at y'all are reacting hella weird. I know. I'll see you guys on the next one. Rabbits out. Bye, guys.